Good afternoon, Dallas Cowboys fans. I'm IndyCar Tim, and it's a rare afternoon edition of the Dallas Cowboys Daily Blitz podcast right here on FanStream Sports. We sub for exclusive Fish at 6 over on that Fish Report YouTube channel. Welcome in, one and all. I'm a little off my rocker for one thing. You probably hear that from a lot of people. Off my game a little bit because these afternoon live shows are just weird. I don't know how Fish does this. I don't know how he does 2 a day. 2 a days have always sucked in football, and broadcasting is no exception. We're going to get through it today for you, though. Fish will be back tomorrow for those of you looking for him on the Fish Report YouTube channel. If you are just with us on FanStream Sports, then bonus, right? Bonus for you. Because today we're going to talk about the one thing that worked for Dallas last season and how it affects going into this year. And that, of course, is, well, it wasn't the defense. That's for damn sure. It was the offense. Because, you know, for all of the chaos, the noise, the late season frustration, the moments that we looked at the team and said, they're clearly not on the same page. The highlight of the year was clearly, even statistically, Brian Schottenheimer's offense in his first year as the head coach of the Dallas Cowboys. You had Dak throwing for 4,500 plus yards, 30 touchdowns. CeeDee Lamb did CeeDee Lamb things. George Pickens gave the Cowboys another 1,000-yard receiver in his first year here. You had Javonte Williams, 1,200 yards and 11 scores. And look, if you're looking at all of that on paper, it doesn't just look good. It looks dangerous. But the problem with that is looking at it now, of course, last year was last year. That's where we are. But looking at that now in June, as the calendar almost moves to July, that doesn't affect what happens next January. Looking good on paper in June/July doesn't win you games in September, November, October, November, December. I don't know why I got the months confused right there. But, you know, good now might get somebody some fantasy points, I guess, down the road as the season starts. Good on paper will get the Cowboys ranked in the preseason rankings and all of those, I guess, articles and all of those rankings that mean absolutely nothing as you approach September. The thing about the Cowboys offense, yes, they were good last year, but we saw deficiencies, right? I talked a little bit about it this morning. The slow starts, the at times disappearing offense, because at times they did disappear. And I think going into this year, the offense needs to finish better, to start better. And there's answers that we need for this thing. It can't just be the same offense. It's the same players, which is fine, which is cool. But the question is, how will this Cowboys offense evolve heading into 2026? Because make no mistake, this thing has got to evolve. I don't think you can just copy and paste what you had last year and run it back in 2026. With all due respect to Brian Schottenheimer, to Dak, to CeeDee, to Javonte, to Jake Ferguson, and to George Pickens. That's just not how the league works. Defensive coordinators have spent an entire offseason looking at the Cowboys offense from last year in preparation for next year. Every formation, every red zone play, which wasn't real good either. Every third down play, every motion look, every adjustment that they made mid-game. All of these DCs are looking to see what Dallas did last year and projecting that for the most part for this year. And Brian Schottenheimer knows that, and Klayton Adams knows that. Klayton Adams said the Cowboys spent the entire portion of this offseason studying last year what they were missing, what went right, what went wrong, what didn't fit the personnel groups that they had, what doesn't fit the personnel groups they have now, and maybe simply what they just didn't do enough of last year. And that's exactly where this conversation needs to start in the building, because look, evolving doesn't mean that you're abandoning everything you did last year. Evolving just means that you're improving on what you did good last year and maybe eliminating what you did bad. Why did this offense stall late in games? Why did the scoring sometimes disappear in the second half? Why did the red zone at times look like a no-fly zone for this offense? Why on earth did an offense with Dak Prescott, CeeDee Lamb, George Pickens, and a 1,200-yard running back feel like it never really hit its overdrive gear? And it did at times. And that's the frustrating part, and I'm sure it's the frustrating part for Schottenheimer and Klayton Adams now, because the offense was productive, but it still felt, at least to me, and you guys can tell me if it didn't feel this way to you, that they left a lot on the field. For some of you barbecue guys, they left a lot of meat on the bone. We'll just leave it at that before I get myself in trouble. And look, now I actually like what Klayton Adams and what Brian Schottenheimer are saying about this offense moving forward. They're not trying to tighten it down too securely. They're not trying to overcorrect. They're just trying to evolve. And that's all that needs to happen. And look, every coach has a summertime plan. Every coach thinks that they have all the answers in June and July. Then the preseason hits, then injuries happen. Then some backup tight end will flash. Then a rookie receiver all of a sudden becomes useful out of nowhere. Then a defensive trend pops up around the league that you want to imitate. And by week 6, everybody is stealing everybody else's ideas. That's just how the league works right now. You don't win by being stubborn. Just ask the Dallas Cowboys. You win by adapting, you win by evolving, you win by being dangerous. And dangerous offenses are the ones that are flexible. And the Cowboys need to be able to win in multiple ways. They need to be able to spread you out and let Dak carve you up in the secondary. They need to be able to condense formations and punch you in the mouth on the ground. They need to be able to use CeeDee Lamb like a chess piece. Move him around. You need to do the same thing with George Pickens. You need Javonte Williams to be more than just a volume runner. I think he's got to have more chunk plays this year. You have to try to set all of that up for your offense. And when we're talking about answers on offense, we don't need the opposing defenses saying, we're taking away your favorite thing, now beat us some other way, and then they can't. Because that's kind of what happened last year, I think. This offense got exposed quite a bit last year. And a lot of this was in the red zone. I think the season was decided, a lot of games were decided in the Cowboys' lack of production in the red zone. You can't afford to have an offense that looks like number 1 in the league between the 20s. And then when the field shrinks, you got nothing. You can't do that again. This is where Schottenheimer and Klayton Adams need to get creative. That's where this team needs to get physical, and this is where Dak needs to improve. He's got to make better decisions and maybe quicker decisions. CeeDee Lamb has to be utilized better in the red zone. George Pickens has to be utilized better in the red zone. Jake Ferguson has to matter again. I felt like too much last year. He just didn't matter. The tight ends have to all be involved. The backs have to be involved. Dak has to have quick answers. And that's how good teams bury you. All good offensive teams do that. The other area where Dallas has to evolve is just in the second half, I think. The late season drop-off wasn't just annoying. I think it was a big-time warning sign for this thing. And I don't know if it was defenses were adjusting. Look, I've heard defensive coordinators say off the record, there's no such thing as second half adjustments on defense. Nobody's ever done that. I've heard guys say that before. I don't know if they're just bad defensive coordinators or if that's just a myth that analysts think happened or fans think happened. But you hear it said all the time, we need to make second half adjustments. Head coaches say it going into the locker room at halftime. So I don't know if that's a real thing or not. But if it is, then it seems like the Cowboys' opposing defensive coordinators were way too successful at that last season because way too often the Cowboys' offense was completely shut down. Or was it Brian Schottenheimer adjusting too conservatively, whether you had a lead or not? Were the adjustments confusing the players? I don't know, but whatever the answer was, it cannot happen again. Not with Dak, not with CeeDee Lamb and George Pickens catching passes, not with Javonte Williams running the ball. Because we've seen all of that before. The Cowboys score points, they pile up stats, they look explosive, and then comes the fourth quarter and they disappear. And it turns into an L. What was a 17-point lead turns into a 3-point loss. We don't need any of that. And look, I don't think this needs to become some completely new offense. That's not what anybody is asking. I don't think the Cowboys need to pretend that they're the 49ers, the Lions, or anybody else. Just go be the Cowboys. Brian Schottenheimer's got a great thing going offensively here. Just be a better version of yourself. Add more motion with purpose. Build some more misdirection off of the run game. For the love of God, use the screen game. I don't know if Brian Schottenheimer's ever heard of a screen pass. And you got guys that can do it. Javonte Williams is excellent in that capacity. He just didn't do it enough. But you need to make the defenses declare their coverage before the snap, and then you need to be able to confuse them as to what they're looking at. And I don't know that the Cowboys did enough of that last year. And it doesn't mean gadget plays. It doesn't mean getting cute too often. Just be creative. And sometimes evolution isn't all about doing things that are exotic or gadget. Sometimes it's just knowing when to stop outsmarting yourself. And you know, Klayton Adams, when talking about this offseason, used a word that I really, really liked. He used the word organic. Come up with organic solutions. Evolve the offense organically. Because the Cowboys don't need some sort of fake offseason identity. They need an offense that grows up through the season. Maybe something pops in camp here this year. Maybe personnel surprises, some pairing, some grouping surprises all of us. Maybe you've got a young receiver that shows what he can do in training camp. You know what? Maybe the offensive line is going to be better than we think on the exterior. Maybe it'll be better than we think on the interior. Maybe the best version of this offense won't even show its head until October. And you know what? That's fine. But the key has to be the Cowboys have to write their own story with this. The Cowboys have to be able to evolve. Because if we think that we already know exactly who they are and it's not even July yet, if we see them in August and we think they know who they are, that's probably a bad sign because the rest of the league's also going to know who they are. And those teams are going to be able to figure out how to stop it way too soon. And there goes your season. So look, bottom line, boys and girls, the Cowboys offense was great last year. Great-ish. It was great when it was great. It just wasn't consistent enough. But inconsistent shouldn't be the standard. Good shouldn't be the standard anymore here. Not when Dak throws for 4,500 yards, not when Pickens and Lamb both go over 1,000 yards receiving, not even when Javonte Williams rushes for over 1,200 yards on the ground. The NFC is going to be very unforgiving this year. There's some really good teams. And this team, this franchise, is desperate for some sort of appearance in mid-January and beyond. So the question is, Can Schottenheimer's offense evolve? Can Klayton Adams help give this thing some teeth? Something new, more answers, more finish, more red zone creativity, more second half life. I almost said second half adjustments, but again, I'm not sure that's a thing. Offensively, probably. They have to make it harder for teams to figure out what they're doing, not just before a game, but in the middle of the game. And I think that will help tremendously. So anyway, those are my thoughts on the offense, what has to happen to the Cowboys offense. We've been digging on the defense all summer long, all off season long, giving a lot of love to the offense, and rightfully so. I just feel like the offense maybe doesn't deserve a lot of the love that we're giving it, or all of the love that we're giving it, because it does need to be better this year too. There's certainly no question. All right, guys, I'm going to go have a beer. It's 6 o'clock. I can go have a beer. You guys go have your late dinner, whatever it is. I don't know what time y'all normally have dinner. I'm normally having dinner like at 5:30 or right about now. I know people that don't eat till 7:30 or 8. Hell, I know people that don't eat dinner till 9. To me, that's like third dinner. I don't know how y'all do that. But we will be back in the morning, 7 a.m., our normal time slot, with more Dallas Cowboys Daily Blitz podcast over at FanStream Sports and the Fish Report YouTube channel. Until then, boys and girls, we'll see you.